Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Swift protocols and how they might be useful and how you can use them in your apps. So first, let's start out with it's a really simple object, just this user object. And this object has a first name string and a last name string. And if we want to make a function for it, let's say we need to make a function that just prints out their name, you could write it like this. This function takes in a user, puts together the first and last name, and prints it out. So super simple. And here you can see it in action. Now let's say we have another object in our app and it's called a friend object. It's a different type, but it also has these exact same properties, first name string and last name string. What would be really cool is if we could just use that same function we had before and use it with our friend object and just put it in there because they have a first name and last name too. It should work, right? No, it doesn't. And the reason is because that function, print name, only takes in a user. Only takes in a user object, does not take in a friend object, and it can only handle that specific type of user. So what we would have to do is we'd have to create a whole other function specifically for a friend type. And if we look back at the user one, the same function for a user, these functions look almost exactly the same. In fact, the only real difference between them is that type, friend and user. Everything is basically the same. So what would be cool is if we could somehow make this function generic so that it could accept either a friend or a user object. And that's where protocols come in. So I'm not going to go into the syntax of this right now. I'm just going to talk about this at a conceptual level. What protocols let us do is they let objects that don't really have anything to do with each other share the same functionality. So with that example of the friend object and the user object, you can make it so that both those objects, even though they don't really know about each other at all, they're not tied together, they can actually use that same print function. And so now we're going to talk about how we go about doing it. So first, in order to understand protocols, I'm going to make an analogy. Protocols are like certifications. And when I say certifications, I mean like real world certifications, like an MD degree, a medical degree. And what these certifications are, or what a medical degree says, it's like a guarantee that says this person who has an MD has gone to med school, has graduated, has completed their residency, passed their board exams, and all the other requirements you need to complete in order to be called a doctor or have an MD. And anyone can be a doctor, but they just have to satisfy these requirements. Protocols are like the exact same thing. If we look at this protocol right here, is the has full name protocol. It's specifying what you are required to have in order to become this type or to adopt this has full name protocol. And then we start digging into the syntax. We have our protocol and then the name. And then within the brackets is our requirements. And the first requirement is you've got to have a first name string property with read access. And then you also have to have a last name string property also with read access. If you fulfill these two requirements, you then have the option of adopting this protocol and being a has full name type. Okay, so let's talk about how do we actually conform to this protocol? How do we become, in a sense, certified to be a has full name type? So we're going to go back to our user object, and we know that we actually we fulfilled the requirements to become a has full name type, but we actually have to declare it. We have to explicitly say we want to adopt the has full name protocol, and you do that just by adding the colon and the has full name, the name of the protocol next to it. So here's what happens when you do this. When you add that has full name protocol, when you claim to have adopted this protocol, the compiler is going to go and check it. It's going to see, okay, this user object, he's saying that he adopts the has full name, but I'm going to check to see if it's really true. Because I want to be able to provide a guarantee to everyone else that anyone who says they've adopted the has full name protocol really has done it, really is certified. And so it looks for the first name string, last name string, and it says, yep, you do conform, you do meet all the requirements of the has full name protocol. And to take a counter example, if there's another object that tried to declare that it adopted the has full name protocol, the compiler would look at it and see, hey, wait, you are missing something. You do not meet all the requirements. You're missing that last name string. You need that property. And so what the compiler is saying is, you have one of two options. You can either stop trying to pretend to be a has full name type when you haven't actually met all the requirements, or you actually go and add that last name property. And until you do one of those two things, I'm not going to build the app. I'm just going to give you an error message. And this is great because this gives us the guarantee, the safety of knowing that if anyone says they are a has full name type, we are guaranteed to know that they're telling the truth and that we can trust it. We won't get a crash in our app. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to change that original function to use this has full name protocol. So here we have the original function of printing the name for the user, and we're going to refactor it to take in a has full name type. So this could be anything as long as it adopts the has full name protocol, as long as it meets the requirements and declares that it conforms to it. You can pass that into this function. And the reason we can do that is because we have a guarantee. We're guaranteed that this first name and last name exists on whatever object we're passing into it. The compiler has guaranteed that for us. This is great. And so now, what about we've adopted the protocol for user, and now we can also do it for our friend object. And the compiler checks it to make sure that it really does conform, and it does. And here's our function that takes in anything that conforms to has full name. And now we can use it with both user objects and friend objects, because both of them conform to has full name, and the compiler says, great, that works. So now we have one function used for both objects. If we ever need to modify this function in some way, we can always, we just have to change it in one spot. There's no repeated code, and it's just a lot better. What it also allows for, if in the future, what if we want to make a new object? We can have that new object that needs to use the print name function. We can have him adopt to the has full name protocol as well, and then boom, he's already he can use that print name function right away. So protocols are a really great way to help you simplify your code, to help it make your code more shareable, and to reduce the amount of code that you're repeating.